The chairman of Freedom Under Law, Judge Johan Kriegler, reacts to the presidency's comments that NGOs should stay out of the NPA matter involving Shaun Abrams, and he says that the role of the Hawks should also be investigated. Judge Kriegler is my guest. A pleasure to have you with us once again.
Great to be back, thank you.
Unfortunately, you are in the news as the Freedom Under Law for the wrong reason for this moment. The president has already said that he's not impressed with your organization as well as the Helen Suzman Foundation because you are jumping the gun and abusing the court system. He was in the process of talking to Shaun Abrams about his conduct. And what's your response to that?
I think the president must talk to the administrators of his office who let him down very, very badly. We gave him due notice. His office did not give him the correspondence. We had no response. We had no choice but to go on. It now transpires that they were running the president's office like a spaza shop, and they didn't tell him of the letter of demand that we had delivered.
Let's go back to what the letter contained and what you were asking the president to do, because he seems to be taking exception to your application to court.
I don't want to get into a slanging match with the president. We decided, that's Helen Suzman Foundation and Freedom Under Law, in consultation with our lawyers, that Mr. Abrams and his two senior associates had behaved so badly that they just could not stay in office, that there was a major risk that the further prosecutions that they were mumbling about would be launched, would be withdrawn again, that the country would suffer the same kind of financial disaster that it had when first they announced the charge against the minister, that we called on the president in writing formally and with great detail saying, please immediately suspend these people and with a view to their dismissal. We gave a week. Right. Nothing happened in the week. We didn't get a response. We didn't get an acknowledgement. So then we launched the formal application.
But from a justice system point of view, what were you raising as issues or alerting the president to? Because and we'll talk about the letters that have been exchanged between the head of the NPA, Shaun Abrams, and Mr. Benning Clemeza of the Hawks, right? But in the meantime, what were you trying to say to the president about the decisions and the changing of decisions on the part of the NPA?
We were saying to the president that the National Prosecuting Authority had acted in respect of the Gordhan Pillay Magashula case with recklessness. They had not done their homework. They had made allegations on broadcast to the world on television without having checked the documents, that there was a perfectly good defense available if only somebody had looked at the file properly, and that they had acted to great harm to the country, and that these people had showed themselves not fit to remain in office, and he must shut them down. Now, that was our case.
Now, the president says he's written to Shaun Abrams asking him to tell him why he's fit to remain in the job, but goes one step further and says this should not be seen to be the start of some action against Shaun Abrams, saying that there will not necessarily be an inquiry and he will take his time to consider that.
Yes, that's what the president says. I didn't expect the president to say anything else. The interpretation that you can put on the president's reaction is one of two. Either he is genuinely going to look at Shaun Abrams' fitness for office, or he's playing for time. Whether you pick number one or number two is a matter of personal judgment. At this stage, I tend to think that he's playing for time. I may be wrong, but that's the way I read it.
Now, this is the consequence, if we can call it that, on the part of Shaun Abrams saying that he's going to prosecute and then changing his mind. Then it emerges that there was an exchange of letters between himself and the head of the Hawks, and it appears it was prior to the press conference with Mr. Benning Clemeza saying he has heard that the NPA intends withdrawing the charges and is unhappy about that. When you came across this information, what did you think? What was going on then, you think?
I was shocked but not surprised. We had always suspected that there was more behind this prosecution than the mere doing of their duty by the police and the prosecution. It looked like persecution, not investigation. To go back 6 years and go and try to scratch out something at which you could point a finger seemed to us to be an abuse of the prosecutor's powers and of the investigator's powers. It now seems that the good general of the Hawks was behind the prosecution. He was keen on the prosecution. He was angry when it proved that his prosecution was no good. It indicates to us that General Ntlhemeza is certainly part of some influence trying to get the Minister of Finance removed from office.
Well, the City Press and other newspapers, but I think it's the City Press first a couple of weeks ago, said that it believes that charges are still going to be pressed against the Minister of Finance, Pravin Gordhan. From where you are sitting with all the exchange of mails and monitoring the different aspects of these developments, do you think that is the likely scenario?
I think it could well happen. I think they are determined. I think they are determined to press on, notwithstanding the fact that their first attempt has failed very, very badly. I think they will press on, even though we have warned them with chapter and verse, and the Minister has warned them with a detailed opinion, fact and law, you're barking up the wrong tree. They don't mind barking up the wrong tree. For them, I think it is the question of barking. Just remember that General Ntlhemeza was appointed in the most questionable circumstances, and we have been trying for a long time to get his appointment set aside. We say he's not a fit and proper person to be there. I suggest to you and to the viewers that the way he has behaved in relation to Minister Gordhan and to Mr. Abrams shows that he is not a fit person for his job.
Are you surprised that there has not been any reaction to the kind of letters he sent to Shaun Abrams?
Now, I think there has been a reaction from Abrams.
Well, I mean, from his, the higher-ups that, maybe they should call him to order or institute some investigation or something along those lines.
Tim, let's be realistic. The Helen Suzman Foundation was raided in a military-style operation. Their computers containing this material were taken by robbers at gunpoint under the command of a woman who was quite clearly in military command. That was, 6-7 months ago? Do you think they've come to take a fingerprint? Do you think they've come to take a witness statement? The Hawks are not there now to pursue what you and I regard as their job. They are digging little holes into old ditches to find something that they could possibly throw against the minister. That's where they've been wasting their time.
Well, but obviously the situation around the minister is of concern not only to your organization and the Helen Suzman Foundation. There are many, many, many formations in civil society, in business, members of the public, in government, in political circles. Everybody has been saying, please allow the minister and his department to do their work, and we've got to forestall or find a way of dealing with the potential downgrade threat. And in any event, the economy is not performing, and we've got so many challenges at universities and so on. So we need a fully functioning treasury led by someone who knows what he's doing, and he's been saying many things that South Africans are happy with and are taking the lead from him. But even so, his attention has been taken away from the job at hand.
You're quite right, of course. And it is tragic that we are having our time wasted by people who are busy with red herrings all the time. The minister should be left to do his job. The police should do their job, the Hawks should do their job, the prosecutors should do their job, so that you and I and the rest of society can sleep peacefully at night, knowing that they're looking after our interests, not particular political interests.
As matters stand, the NPA, the job of the head there, seems to be a very toxic one, if one can say that, because how many how many NPA heads have we had over the past 7 years or so? 9, 10 or something like that. So, you know, even Shaun Abrams is relatively new to the job, and it looks like his head is on the block. What is going on with the NPA, you think?
Tim, it's a very, very responsible and very, very difficult post. It is a post not only as the chief prosecutor of the country, taking all of the final decisions on prosecutions, but also the person who is in contact with the political masters. That's the dual job of the prosecuting head. And it's that duality that has created the problem. The temptation for politicians to want to use the prosecuting authority for political ends seems to have been irresistible. And that has been the problem from way back with Bulelani Ngcuka, through Vusi Pikoli, his clash with President Mbeki at the time, because he wouldn't take orders from the minister. He said, we must prosecute Salibi. The minister said, you mustn't. Salibi was convicted. Pikoli was right. Similarly, we then have Similani appointed. The Constitutional Court has to say to the President, Aikona, that's not a fit man for the job. Why was Similani appointed? Because he was the guy who was fighting with Pikoli when he was still Director General of Justice. But the moment Abrams walks into the office, after Mr. Nkasana has been bought off at 17 million plus of your and my money, the moment Mr. Abrams walks in the office, he withdraws the prosecution against Jiba and Mrwebi, which had been instituted by Nkasana. He stops the departmental inquiry into them. He restarts the persecution of Glynis Breitenbach. He puts Miss Jiba at the head of the National Prosecuting Authority. She's at his right-hand side. She's basically in charge of all prosecutions. This is the person whom his predecessor had said had criminally acted and had unprofessionally acted to such an extent that she should be prosecuted and investigated. And the person whom the General Bar Council found was not a fit person to be an advocate. Abrams, as he's virtually the first hour that he was in the office, said, come back, all is forgiven, come and take over. Now, I then doubted the man's common sense.
But my final question to you, Judge, just because there's so much detailed information that seems to be all over the place, and you have been following the different developments. I want you to pull it all together and simplify it for me and for our viewers. What exactly is going on? I mean, there was this exchange of the letters between the chief of the Hawks, Benning Clemeza, and that seems to have upset the head of the NPA, Shaun Abrams. On this one, he said, I don't take instructions from you. So at the end of the day, what is it that we're dealing with? Is it Pravin Gordhan the issue, or what is the issue?
No, the issue is broader and wider than Gordhan. And I would remind you that you look at the head of the Hawks being dismissed in strange circumstances. Anwar Dramat gets fired and a suspect gets put in his place. The deputy head and the then head of the Hawks in Gauteng, Shadrach Sibia, gets dismissed in strange circumstances. The top brass in SARS either gets dismissed or gets forced out of office. The Commissioner of Police is under suspension. The head of crime intelligence, Richard Mdluli, has been under suspension for years, and somehow he doesn't get prosecuted. It is a broader, much more wider, and much more ominous picture that we must look at. Who is behind it and what is behind it, I don't know. But I can say that it's much broader and wider and deeper than merely Gordhan.
Judge Johan Kriegler, thank you very much for talking to us.
You're very welcome.
And that's the chairman of Freedom Under Law, helping us make sense of the developments around the NPA letter sent to Shaun Abrams, the head. that he should explain to the president why he's fit and proper to hold the office. And the presidency, on the other hand, saying NGOs must stay out of this matter. And we learn as well that letters were received from the Hawks demanding that the NPA go ahead with pressing charges against Minister Gordhan, and speculation in the media that such charges are going to be reinstated anyway. What's going on? That's the question.